was on a panel, and one transracial adoptee, she's Black, and the family that adopted her is white. And with everything going on with racial injustice last year, she walked into her father's home, and she had on a Black Lives Matter shirt. And she was really trying to learn more about her Black heritage and culture. And he was like, "Get out of my house with that shirt on."
There's a reason why the colors of the rainbows are so bright.
Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my interview with Cindy Wilson. If you have not seen part 1, I recommend you watch that before watching this to fully appreciate her incredible life story. In part 1, Cindy revealed how she was born in South Korea and adopted by a Black American family who were members of the US military stationed in South Korea at the time. She explained how the whole family moved to America when she was a baby and how her mother went on to have another child.
So they adopted me. I was only a few months old. We moved back to the States, and we moved to Chicago. And then 3 years after they adopted me, they had my brother, Adrian. So he's Black. And so that's, has always been interesting.
Cindy went on to talk about her experience with racism from a very young age and how that had a huge impact on her self-worth.
And I remember when I started to go to school, I was one of 3 Asian students, and people started picking on me and bullying me. That's when I started to develop identity issues because I equated being different to not being good.
Coming up in part 2, Cindy discusses how being raised in a Black family shaped her life and also describes the exploration of her Asian heritage. She also provides her perspective on race relations in America with regards to the rise in hostility towards the Haitian community. So, without further ado, here is part 2 of the Cindy Wilson story. You write very openly about the friction between you and your mom growing up. And to be honest, it's so interesting that I thought you could have written a second book just on that topic if you wanted to. But did you ever get the sense that she knew or understood your struggles with identity?
I want to say yes, and I want to say that probably is what led to her coming up with the story that she came up with,
Yeah.
So I would say yes, but I would say the way that she handled it, only added more layers of complexity and just things that I would have to, deal with later, in life. So it was like, even though she thought she was helping me and protecting me, it just added more layers of complexity to my entire situation, especially when it came to identity.
One of the advantages of being raised by 2 parents is that at least one of them lets you get away with stuff, and you can sometimes play them against each other to get what you want. However, in your case, your dad was absent. Did you think that maybe the absence of that voice of reason, an ally, so to speak, that you may have gotten from that every now and then led to the constant friction between you and your mom?
I mean, that definitely is a possibility because, it was like just me and my mom going at it all the time,
You saw the raw version of it.
Yeah, so it's like it probably would have helped to have someone there as a buffer to kind of help both of our situations. So, I would say in hindsight, I never thought about that, but yeah, in hindsight, that I think it potentially could have been helpful.
Yeah. So as I read your book, I kept wanting to ask the question, knowing how you turned out, strong, successful, and driven, should your mom have done anything differently? Does the end justify the means? What I'm trying to ask really is, how does your mom feel about your book?
Oh, well, I feel like that's 2 different questions. I think everything happens. I truly believe everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And as tough as a lot of those situations were, I think they were necessary, like not only for my growth, but for hers as well. And the thing that I had to learn that I think, we all do as children and with our parents is we have this expectation for them to be perfect.
Yeah.
But then, like getting older, having my own experiences, and just understanding people better, is that people are not perfect. And people have a lot of baggage that comes with them, and things that have shaped and influenced them. And it's like you would hope that they would be able to evolve and learn, but it's like they're just like I'm going on my journey and learning a lot of different things. My mom is too, but it took me a while to get there because I did have that expectation, like, no, like you should be perfect. Like parents don't lie, parents don't do this, or it's like you don't do that. But then I would hear other people and their family situations and like different things that, and not to justify and make it right with what some of the things that happen my situation, but it's like it happens because people are imperfect and they're trying to do the best that they can with the situations that they have, and they don't always handle them in the best way. And that's something that they have to live and learn through. But for me, I had to really learn to accept that she was not perfect. She is human, and really dig deep to forgive her. And then going for your second question, like how did my mom feel about the book? Like it was a lot of conversations in the beginning. Like I sent her the book before I came out with it, but it was like I was in a rush to get it out on the date because I really was like committed to this 8/8/18 date. And so I was like, hey, here's the copy. Maybe you want to read it. Yeah. And so my brother, bless his heart, he tried to help. He was like, he told her specifically, read these chapters. And so
be okay with it.
Right. So she didn't read it till it came out. And then she read one of the chapters, but it was like, it painted her in like the light of like what I loved and appreciated about her. So she was like, oh yeah, no, I love it, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, did you read the next chapter? She's like, no, not yet. I was like, okay, read that one and let me know, get back with me.
Let me know.
Yeah. And so she read the next one, and she sends me this message and was like, so I read the next chapter, and I mean, you felt how you felt, and I can't, change that, but I just, tried to do the best that I could. And I was like, I know you did, and so I could tell she was definitely in her feelings, and she was like, maybe I should write my own book. I'm like, go for it, like, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, like it was very therapeutic for me. Maybe it'll be therapeutic for you. And then I've only shared this like with one other group, I think, but me and my mom, we both like psychics, and we were in New Orleans one time, and she went in and she met with a lady, and then I went in after her, and we were already like having tension then, and not getting along on this trip. And I ended up leaving the trip early because I was like, I can't even deal with this. So I go into the psychic after her, and then she was like, you and your mom are gonna be okay. And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And she was like, no, you're gonna be okay. She was like, one day you're gonna write her a letter, and she's gonna really understand like what you have had to go through, and you guys are gonna be okay. And it's like, after I came out with the book and knowing that she read, and it's like the times that we've tried to have conversations, it's always just been like, a lot of tension. And like, and for me, sometimes I do communicate better on paper because I'm able to get all of my thoughts out, and not be so personal with my expression.
Yeah.
And so, like now, knowing that she's read those things, she understands me a little bit better. She kind of knows the role that she's played in some parts or whatever. Like it has made our relationship that much stronger. And it's like, now it's so weird. She'll be like, yeah, next time you come in town, you should we should go to church, and then you sell the books in the lobby. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's like I want her to be supportive, but she's like super supportive now. So I'm like, I don't really know how to, I'm like, are you serious? Like, are you really okay? Like, so that's been really interesting. Yeah, it's been interesting.
So on to other matters. I want to have your perspective on a few social issues in America. Asians are often viewed as the ideal immigrants, but in recent months we've seen a rise in the hostility towards the Asian community. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I mean, my perspective is again unique in a sense that I didn't grow up in the Asian culture and heritage,
Mm.
but I can relate to other Asians based on the stereotypes that we encounter, based on the bullying that we've encountered, based on being targeted, and then also like this false narrative of a model minority myth that they've tried to place on us, that we now know was only done to further divide us with other people of color, and so knowing that that's not true, like we are not the model minority myth, knowing why it was created and placed in the system, like I think with everything that's going on, we just have to speak truth to a lot of it. And, like this week has been super emotional for me because, like, my company, they had a talk with like our Asian community and they were like kind of outlining like the issues, like what's been going on. And it's not like this is anything new. Like, and especially during the pandemic, like this has been going on or has gotten worse since last year. And for me, being Asian and like my other Asian friends, I knew as soon as I heard, and this is why words matter, as soon as I heard China virus, Kung flu, all of that, those terminologies, and people felt empowered to just say it, I knew that it was going to empower, because like words can empower either love or hate. I knew that was going to empower hate, and I knew that automatically put a target on my back, as an Asian woman, out in the community. So it was like last year, really was interesting because it triggered a lot of trauma for me and for a lot of other Asian people, like having to second guess, like, do I really need to go to the grocery store? Because I know if I go, if somebody sees my eyes, what do I do? For me, it was just like, and like I'm a little crazy, like if you say something, I'm gonna say something back. Or it depends. It depends on the day. Like if I'm a little zen kumbaya, I might be like, Cindy, no, you just get your groceries and go home. But it depends. Like if I'm a little, riled up that day or whatever, if you say something the wrong way to me, it's like, and God forbid you touch me, like I'm gonna lose it. So, it's like having to think about those things, like, what if I go to this store and what if somebody says something to me? What do I do? What if somebody touches me? What do I do? And then, so it was like a lot of people in our Asian community were sharing their stories, which again, like I didn't grow up in that culture and heritage, but like I could relate to every single one of their stories because I've been in those exact same experiences. And then, try not to get emotional. Then, the situation happened in Atlanta, and that's where I live. So I'm just getting off this call. I'm super emotional, lying on my couch, and then all of a sudden my phone starts blowing up. And people are like, are you okay? What's going on in Atlanta? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm just trying to watch Real Housewives. I don't know. What are you talking about? So they're like, put it on the news. And like, I put it on the news. And I see what happens. And I'm just like, done. Like, yeah, I just was like, I can't. So, again, let me try not to get emotional. But, so it was like tough. Like that next day was like really hard for me to like even just get through the day. Like, and you know, so it was like this Asian professional group that I'm a member of.
Yeah.
They had like a mental health check-in that day, thank God. And it was interesting because it made me grateful for the support that I was receiving from my coworkers and people that I know. Because there were people on the call that literally were breaking down in tears, talking about how their companies had not acknowledged it and like how their coworkers had not even said anything to them. And it just, you know, and overwhelmingly, like just seeing people get emotional from that, for me, it was like we need some, our community needs support right now, you know. And it's like, even if you feel uncomfortable and you don't really know what to say, like say something, because your silence speaks louder than no words at all, you know. So yeah, like this week has been really tough, but again, you know, it's like I think this has been exposed, it's out there. It's like, now what do we do to heal from this, and how do we move forward? And it's like, you know, I know for me, my part that I have to play is like sharing my story about how it impacts me, and like how, you know, like right now, the only thing that, you know, the thing that I see that we need the most is support, you know. And then maybe throughout, you know, as we continue to talk about what's happening, you know, I'll discover like, okay, these are some more things that need to happen, because I do have people reaching out to me and it's like, what can I do? How can, you know, and I'm like, this is the best start, asking, what can you do? And again, because people need support in different ways also, you know. And then this has happened in the Asian community for so long, like we tend to often suffer in silence, that a lot of us don't know what help we need, you know, because it's like we just have always, it's been normalized. We just always dealt with it. So a lot of us, like, we're still trying to figure that out too for ourselves, you know? So I think people just have to, you know, understand that, but just at least extend it, you know, and be prepared, you know, if somebody does tell you what they need, to be able to get that, you know.
I think the first step is having that conversation started. That's the very first step in obviously moving forward and healing from this. So in the light of your own experience, what's your take on transracial adoption? Is it something you would consider for yourself? And if yes, how would you put your child's identity?
Oh, that's a good question. I think because I'm a hodgepodge of like, just, I appreciate so many different cultures and ethnicities. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely consider it. I think because of the world that we live in, and it's like, it's so, again, people are, they want to put you in this box, right? And so, and they can be really tough on you when it's like, what do you mean you don't know your culture or your heritage? And it's like, 'cause I didn't grow up in that, you know? But I see the, like, for me now, being older, having this exposure now in Atlanta, I really do truly, like, I think that my appreciation, I think that my want to learn more would have been amplified, or would have happened sooner had I had more exposure. And so there's so many transracial adoptees that are out there, like, trying to help parents, and most of them are white, you know, that are doing the transracial adoptees, but really, you know, helping to prepare these homes and these families to, you know, it's like you hear people glorify, in a sense, adoption. Like, oh, that's so nice. Like, you adopted a child and blah, blah, blah. But again, everybody's human. And like, just because, you know, you decided to adopt doesn't mean you have some messed up stuff you have to work out too. So it's like, you know, like I was on a panel, and one transracial adoptee, she's Black, and the family that adopted her is white. And with everything going on with racial injustice last year, she walked into her father's home, and she had on a Black Lives Matter shirt. And she was really trying to learn more about her Black heritage and culture. And he was like, get out of my house with that shirt on. And so it's like, when people are like, no, you know what? I'm adopting, and like, I'm going to love this child and this, and that. And love is great. But unless you really, truly know that you can support this child for what they need to know about their culture, their heritage, and embrace and support that. And also, like, hearing stories about people wanting to learn more about their birth families or their birth mother or father, and their adoptive parents like taking it personal, like, we're not good enough. And I understand why they would take it personal, because they're so invested, but they have to understand that that is a potential of something that could happen, and you have got to remove your ego and be there to support this child, and it's like, it's not personal, but it's like a void that some, adoptees feel are missing in their life, that they need to explore. And I just think it's disheartening and just so sad that, like, families try to make them feel guilty for, like, even wanting to do that, like, that's just not right. So there's a lot that goes into what needs to be considered, but it's like, luckily, me having that personal experience, and then also having transracial adoptee friends that like teach on it, and having had those conversations, I feel like I would be better equipped. But then still, like, a part of me too is like, do I want to have children and potentially mess them up? Because again, I'm still human. Like, I'm not perfect. And so even though I may understand that aspect of it, it's like, there are other things when you have children that, it's like, I think it's so critical that people, know that they can truly support and be there for this child, whether they're adopted or not,
Yeah, absolutely. So earlier on, you talked about moving quite a lot. We all know that every town or city has this unique way of living. How did you adapt so quickly to your environment?
I think I'm very social, and I love to explore and try new things. And I'll talk to any and everybody. Like, I'll talk to a wall. Like, just you asking me about my experience, and I was like, blah 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 blah, and I can talk about it like as long as I did. Like, so for me, just my personality, like, it helps, for me to meet people, explore new cities, and have different experiences. And then I think, the key is like just being open, and then wanting to learn more about the environments that you're in and the people that live there. I think is really key and critical.
Yeah, that's what really my channel is all about, learning about the new culture I find myself in and helping other people that just moved over to adapt quickly and understand the culture they find yourself in.
Yeah, absolutely.
In your book, you talked about your passion for diversity and inclusion. My company, as well as so many other companies, are starting to take this very seriously. What do you think would make diversity and inclusion work effectively for everyone?
I think, right now we're in a situation where, like, a lot of companies and just people are trying to figure it out. I think, me personally, just from my personal experience, storytelling is like one of the most effective ways. Like, if we are really understanding our coworkers and some of their struggles and what they're having to struggle with at work, outside of work, and like how we can really, like, I think a lot of companies are like, we care about each other and this and that, but it's like caring for each other, like, that's an action. That's something you have to put into action. So it's like, how do we really show up for each other so people can feel like they can bring their full selves to work, you know, and be more productive, because they know they have the support of their company and their coworkers.
So tell us about your journey to finding your roots, heading back to South Korea. At what point did you think it was time to go?
The same month that I came out with my book was the same month I had planned to go to Korea.
Right.
And so I go to Korea, and, you know, you probably saw my book at the end. I'm like, you know, I don't know. Like, there was so much pressure I put on myself. Like, what if I go and I don't fit in, and like I don't feel a connection? What does that mean? Like, does that mean I'm not Korean, or I don't know. So I just kind of had to remove that out of the way of, like, you know, me just being able to go and explore and enjoy the experience. And so I would say the first time that I went, I did not feel a connection per se. Like, yes, this is me, this is who I am. But, you know, like it was a lot of learning for me, because the culture and heritage is everywhere. Like, you've got the palaces everywhere. You've got the Buddha temples everywhere, food everywhere, so many vendors. And and I will say, I did feel at home when I first drove into Seoul, and I kept seeing chicken and beer. And I was like, all these chicken and beer places. I was like, wait a minute, where did I go to? What? Hold on. Like, wait a minute. But yeah, am I in Jackson? Wait, hold on. Did we get on the right plane? I'm so confused right now. So yeah, so it was like, not necessary. And then it's like, you know, the one place that I found and felt a connection to was like a hip hop Korean bar, you know, that was there. And like the owner there, like, he was playing all the stuff that I loved, and me and my brother were writing down like playlists of like, okay, play this next. And he was just like playing whatever we asked him to play. It was so cool. But, you know, like, meeting people there, they were like, oh yeah, they can look at you and tell you're not Korean. And I was like, I didn't really know how to feel about that. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, no, it's just that the way you do your makeup, the way your clothes, the clothes that you wear, like, they can tell you're not from here. And I was like, okay, that's fair, you know. And then it was like, too, I could feel like my American culture kicking there. Like, I walked up to this one lady and I was like, oh my gosh, I love your shoes. And she was like, and she wasn't rude, but she just kind of looked at me like, what's going on right now? We don't do this here. Like, oh my gosh. And so I had to learn a lot about how to adjust myself, you know, in another country, which is, you know, I always have to do that whenever I travel anywhere internationally. And so I ended up going back next year. And that was pretty cool because around, again, the same time that I came out with my book was when I started meeting other Korean adoptees, which I had never met before, or if I did, I just didn't know. And like, literally game changer. You know, like, there's certain groups of people that I feel more comfortable in, but it was like an automatic connection. You know, and even though our lives are different and my situation was a lot more different than theirs, it was like just naturally feeling like there's this unspoken understanding that and relatability that I had with this group of individuals. That it's hard to even kind of put in words, but it was just that instant kind of connection that I was like, wow, like, this is my tribe of people. Like, this is so cool. And so we went to this International Korean Adoptee Conference the year after I'd gone to Korea. And some of my friends had not been to Korea before. So I was like, oh my gosh, we got to go here. And like, you know, so that was cool. Like, being able to take them to places I had been that I really enjoyed and liked while I was there. And then like taking them to this one vendor that I would always go to, and like, she didn't speak English, but like feeling a connection with her, and her being grateful for like the business I'm bringing her. And like, if I touched anything and was like, how much is this? She'd be like, just take it. Or she would like sell it to me for like little of nothing, and then like we were like hugging each other, and I was just like, wow, like this is so cool. So I'll say when it comes to just me learning more and getting in touch with like my culture and heritage, that's still a work in progress. But it's a part of my journey that I'm really excited about. So, excited to see where that kind of leads to. But I think some of the events that have recently happened with like the Asian American community will kind of play into my journey also. So, I mean, we'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
So to be continued.
That's good. So, Cindy, you've already accomplished so much at a very young age. So, what's the next chapter of your life going to look like?
Yeah. I honestly, I mean, I think, like I love, continuing to share my story.
Yeah.
One thing, doing interviews, speaking to different corporations and speaking to, um, like different colleges and universities. I just really have a strong connection with children or like and our students, I would say the most profound, your questions are great. Let me just say that. But the most profound questions that I receive are from students where I'm like, wow, like nobody's ever asked me that question. And like,
Yeah.
that's deep. Like it almost becomes like a therapy session for me. Like, that's really something good for me to consider. Huh, let me think about that. And so, for me, when I wrote this book, I really wanted people to feel more accepted and for them to feel okay to be who they are. But it's like now I see the need for people to feel safe to be who they are, and it's like, and then like we talked about companies and corporations and D&I, it's like, how did they create that safe space for people, Um, so, that's something that I think about often, and something I really want to figure out. And especially, like I know how detrimental and how hard it was for me being younger, and having to deal with those identity issues. Like, I don't want somebody to feel like they have to spend years of their life trying to figure that out, but that they can embrace, being different at a very early age and be okay with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In your book, I really admired the fact that you spoke so much about your faith and you made a lot of reference to it. How have you coped during the pandemic, not having to go to church or fellowship with fellow Christians?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So I was already kind of bedside Baptist, they call it. Like, so my favorite pastor is T.D. Jakes, and he lives
I
in
love him.
Texas. Love. Yeah, he's my absolute favorite. So I
Yes.
was already like listening to him every Sunday, from watching it virtually.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a big transition for me in a sense.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, like my spirituality, I feel like I still stay connected with that. I
Yeah.
think just with a lot of the racial injustice that was going on, like the Black Lives Matter, knowing the things that like directly impact my family and my friends, and then knowing what the Asian community was going through, and then me being triggered, it was almost like a double whammy. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily like spirituality that I had to focus on and get
Yeah.
right with. It was more so mental health and like trying to figure out how to take care of myself, despite everything that was going on, and like
Yeah.
being in a pandemic, stuck in your house, and that's all you see on the news and
Yeah.
social media all day. It was not becoming healthy for me. So like, thankfully I have a therapist. Thankfully I have God, my spirituality. But it was like just I had to lean in more to those things, because I think last year was the first time in my life that I just really felt like, I don't know if I've ever experienced mental health issues before, but like I definitely felt like I did last year.
So, Cindy, tell us where we can get your book.
Yeah, so you can go on Amazon, and my book is toomuchsoul.com, or you can visit my website, toomuchsoul.com. The book is on there, but it'll just take you right to Amazon. But yeah, stay connected with me through my website, my Instagram page, Asian underscore Southern underscore Bell, and my book has a IG page, Too Much Soul underscore book. So I hope you all continue to stay connected with me through those sites as well.
Okay. So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed your time with us today. Don't forget to pick up a copy of Too Much Soul. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. And I will leave a link in the description box below. And also on the screen, I'll leave a link to Cindy's Instagram handle. Follow her and find out, catch up with her, what she's up to. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed watching today's video. If you did, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one.
There's a reason why the colors of the rainbows are so bright. It's for you and me to learn.